In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Eric.
I'm Rory.
And I'm Bridget.
And today we were looking at When Harry Met Sally, a great classic from the 80s by Rob Reiner. So, it's directed by Rob Reiner, written by Nora Ephron, starring Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Carrie Fisher, and Bruno Kirby. And Bridget and I were just talking about how that is basically the cast. There is some other people, but this is really Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan movie. And they knock it out of the park. So, for those that don't know what this classic film is about, and it's from, I forget what year, sometime in the 82 to 92, one of those times. If you listen to James and I when we talked about A Few Good Men, we talked about this. But When Harry Met Sally takes place, though, or should I say starts, in 1977, when recent University of Chicago graduates Harry Burns, played by Billy Crystal, and Sally Albright, played by Meg Ryan, share a cross-country drive to New York. During the trip, Harry confidently argues that men and women can't just be friends because sex always gets in the way. Sally strongly disagrees. They part ways, unconvinced and unimpressed with each other. Over the next 12 years, the two repeatedly run into one another at different stages of their lives, each encounter shaped by evolving careers, relationships, and heartbreaks. With each meeting, their dynamic softens. What begins as irritation turns into familiarity, then turns into a genuine and supportive friendship. When both find themselves single at the same time, their bond deepens even more. They become best friends, sharing late-night phone calls, personal insecurities, and dating disasters. But when their friendship turns intimate, it complicates everything, it raises the stakes on Harry's original claim, and is forcing them to confront what they truly mean to each other. And so, this is a rom-com. So I'll give a little bit of content warning. I actually was kind of surprised about how many F-bombs this was. I was like, this was taking place in the 80s. I was actually kind of surprised how many F-bombs there were. There's obviously there is a lot of talk about sex. There is no nudity, though. There's no nudity. There's no actual sex scene or anything. But I just wanted to make sure we address that on the front end. So, talking about popcorn ratings, though. Everyone knows it by this point, or should. Stale, wasn't very good. Fresh, like, hey, we need to make more of these. And then buttered and salted, which is like top 10 type of thing. So we'll get started. Rory, how about give us your rating on this?
Super fresh, and
okay.
Oh yeah. I'm probably one of its biggest fans, and it's both works as a great coming of age film and a rom-com, and so character driven in lots of ways. A story that's could be fresh for digital dating culture today. It's interesting looking back then. Yeah, as we'll see that people met each other 5 years apart rather than not a text away, and I think it does go on to answer the very big question, of course, male-female friendship question. Can we be friends, right? Can we be co-hosts by the end of this?
Mm-hmm.
Because can we still be co-hosts? And that kind of question plagued me for years, so it kind of spoke to me in a lot of ways, and like, help me mull over and just propel my thinking in that kind of area and think, actually, what does a biblical view of friendship look like? So I think it's got some things to say that are worth hearing.
No, excellent. Yeah, so for me, I went with very fresh. Again, playing with those, I don't think this quite gets into a buttered and salted thing. I've become stingy with my buttered and salteds over the last couple years, but definitely very fresh. It's kind of weird that the film that helped cement the genre of rom-coms isn't overly tropey. It's Like, it's fun, it's funny, it's also endearing. Both of the characters, and this is something that I noticed different from some of the other rom-coms I've seen over the years, is both the characters are actually likable despite the obvious flaws that they show. Like, you actually genuinely like this people. And you also end up believing that these two do belong together. Unlike a lot of other rom-coms that really focus on, like, the original meet cute and them originally getting together, this focuses on the whole picture of how the relationship built, and it goes beyond that initial spark. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and this is something I absolutely will see again. I saw it for the first time yesterday, so it's still very fresh, and I was blown away. Like, I'll say the same thing that told James about A Few Good Men, is they just don't make good movies like this anymore. And Rob Reiner, his decade run of films is unmatched. Like, I can't think of anyone that had a better decade of films. So, yeah. Bridget, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're saying that, Eric, I think one of the things that A Few Good Men and When Harry Met Sally have in common is that they're script driven.
Yeah.
They aren't action driven. And I think that's what we're missing in so many of our movies these days. It's really hard to find a good script anymore. But I will join both of you in the fresh category for this one. I think it's just funny that a movie that by most standards would be considered old at this point can also still be so refreshing. Eric, as you already mentioned, there is a lot of talk of sex, but there is no nudity. And honestly, I feel like I've seen PG-13 movies that have way more sexual content than this movie does, you know? So in that way, you know, it's kind of nice that, yes, there is some very frank and explicit discussion. But as far as what we see portrayed, there's really not all that much that's objectionable about it. And I think what's kind of refreshing about this too is that in the end, at the end of the movie, all of that talk about sex is opening the door for the people who view this movie to carry on that conversation. It's actually a constructive conversation, I think, about sex that happens in this movie. And I just think that this movie is what rom-coms aren't at all anymore. It's a believable relationship happening over many years with relatable ups and downs. And plus, it portrays the different perspectives that men and women have on relationships. So there's a lot of, you know, gender work happening in this movie as well. So in my perspective, it's genuine, it's heartfelt. And so despite the fact that it's worldly in many ways, too, it's a thoroughly enjoyable film. So fresh for me, for sure.
Yeah, if you want to hear Bridget talk more about or complain more about rom-coms in general, is the episode we released last week, which was In the Lobby episode around romantic comedies and other genre tropes within that within Hollywood. Kat, Maddie, and Bridget did I think 2-hour conversation just talking about a whole host of different movies. So definitely check that out. And so to introduce the theology side of ratings are we looking at this being diluted? Not really that much stuff to talk about from a themes or theology standpoint. Is it carbonated, where it's got a really good central idea that we can talk about? Or is this a cup to run over that's like, we're going to be here for longer than the runtime of the actual movie? And I'll get us started. So I went with carbonated. It really asks one central question that people are honestly still asking to this day. Before we hit record, I mentioned that I was talking with someone at a client meeting that I had, and he asked, "Hey, how's the podcast going?" I said, "Oh, we're covering When Harry Met Sally, and we're gonna talk about the question." And he's like, "Send it to me as soon as you're done because I want to listen to it." People are still asking this question, and I think it's a really interesting conversation that we're going to be having. So, Rory, how about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I also agree that the one central question we're talking about, relationships, sex, people are going to ask that for pretty much until Jesus comes back, because people have that sense of longing and everything, and that's why I gave it a carbonated rating. It may not have all the answers, but it certainly asks the question, because when you talk about friendship, you talk about love, sex, romance, you kind of have to think, well, what's it for? What's the purpose? If this is all falling apart, then what's it meant to look like? And so you have to beg that question and answer it, which is great, because it may not answer it, but we can discuss about what the answer could be, what the greatest love story of them all could be, right? So that's why I think it makes some great conversation fodder. And yeah, it speaks to a culture today that is struggling to find meaning, purpose, love. Yeah.
Bridget?
Yeah, that's a great point, Rory. I went with carbonated for this one as well. I think just in terms of the fact that we're kind of focusing on one or two central themes that this movie brings up is why I'm calling it carbonated. But like I said before, this is the kind of movie you cannot walk away from this movie without talking about the things that it brings up. So if we're just looking at it as a conversation starter and getting men and women to really grapple with these ideas of friendship and being in romantic relationships, in that way, it almost becomes cup runneth over, I think, just because the conversation has to be had. So I enjoy it for that reason.
Looks like we have a consensus on across the board with everything. Is good, but we're going to encourage you guys to like, share the episode. Definitely hit the like button. Help us get within those algorithms a lot more. If you're not already, subscribe on YouTube. Help us get to that 1,000 member mark. We're just shy of that. It's going to be great. We're going to throw a huge party when we get there. So yeah, just help us get to that next milestone. Another quick way: rate and review the episode on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen. And you could. That helps us get back into those good algorithms, help us get to the top of the charts. We want to be the Christian theology podcast when it comes to entertainment. So help us get there. We'd love that. And another way, continue on the mission, is to become a patron saint. Just a few dollars a month, you can become a patron saint. You can get special access to, early access to In the Lobby episodes. Right now, David has a special thing going on. He has already recorded all 8 Harry Potter films. He's already recorded all of them. First episode's already been released, but they're going through those. And for all the premium seating members, you have access to every episode now. You don't have to wait for the next 6 to 10 months for all of the movies for all the episodes to be released. So, premium seating members, great opportunity to jump on board now and support your favorite podcast. So, with that, we'll go ahead and drop the ads and get right back to When Harry Met Sally.
Cinemagog, The Marvelous Era. James Harleman here, the Cinema Guy, announcing the sequel to my first book on film and faith. Let's face it, entertainment has changed dramatically since the first book published in 2012, and comic book characters and franchises are everywhere. So I decided to set my sights on superheroes and examine the evolution of Hollywood in this follow-up to the first Cinemagog book. For example, what does Loki tell us about culture's view of God? Why does the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Saga continually align with biblical themes? In the Marvelous Era, I review each film and show not only how the individual movies express gospel parallels, but each phase essentially reveals a multi-point sermon. I also explore DC, Star Wars, the Monsterverse, and more. Without compromising scriptural truth, we can sift these stories and discover how we might reject, receive, and redeem ideas for personal reflection and Christian conversation. Also, has Hollywood's messaging gotten worse? The book explores ways these marvelous mythologies correspond with conversion, Christian living, church history, and Reformation, but I do also highlight what has been the entertainment industry's darker, indoctrinating decade, as well as toxic fandom and the dangers of immersion in pop culture that just might drown us spiritually if we're not careful. So suit up, assemble, and join me on a journey to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Cinemagog, The Marvel Us Era. Now available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle editions.
And we're back, dropping the spoiler warning as we dig deeper into When Harry Met Sally. And there it is, the famous popcorn sound. If it wasn't too graphic, I would have done a little skit regarding the diner scene, but I'll just say I'll have what they're having, and so we'll go ahead and get a little bit deeper into our conversation here. We have dropped the spoiler warning, so everyone can say whatever you feel like now. So we'll start with you, Rory. You thought this was what you said. I said very fresh. You said like super fresh or something. What did you say?
Oh, super fresh. I think it's every time I watch it, it's always so fresh.
Yeah, you said super fresh.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't. It's just everything, characters, everything. It's just everything. Script. I know. Just you see people mature before your eyes, really, and because they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
They literally are immature. One's a bit too tight. He's a bit too. Well, let's say. Let's say he's got he's a one-trick mind. Let's put it that way. Billy Crystal's character, it's always on sex. But yeah, there are some sweet moments though that are earned through that, especially when they do end up sleeping together, and then the famous phone scene where they're phoning their friends who are both married in the same bed, as it were, and they're having and that took about 25 takes for that 1 minute, 25-minute scene, and it was done live. And for us, it was worth it because in that part they were going. There was that kind of conflict. What do we do now? I don't know, and because that felt real. It felt like you watching real people in front of your very eyes, and that's just one scene I think demonstrates that just one example of many, but I think it's the best example. And they realised they had to make it kind of real and live, and that moment had to be earned as well. And so it's just 25. I think it's 25 takes, but the second to last, they almost did it. Then one person fluffed their lines and I have to go back again. Let's set up again. So yeah,
but no, that's incredible. That I didn't know that. I mean, the care and attention that takes to go. I mean, because how would you normally do it? You'd have the friends in bed, on the phone, waiting for their cue, talking, doing whatever, and then you would have filmed Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan separately. But no, to do it all together, that create the what's that phrase? The I'm going to get it wrong. That verisimilitude or something like that. Verisimilitude. It's a weird phrase. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like you can feel the realness. You can tell that this was actually something real, and that really comes through in this movie a lot. And I had no idea about that, and that's why that scene worked so well. Is because it was real. Because it was real.
Yeah, I know. It actually didn't take 25 takes. I correct myself. 1 minute 25 scene took 61 takes. And it was ruined. I read some online. I'm reading that around take 50, a near perfect take was ruined by birds in the rafters. An hour later was ruined by a final line flub by Bruno Kirby as Jess. Yes. Oh no. But you can tell the dedication to the role, right? You can keep going till you get it. But so good.
That's awesome. So how about you, Bridget?
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up, Rory. I didn't realize that about that scene either, but it's making me think about something that I'll try to remember to bring back in my theology point, because I love the way that scene ends with Marie turning to Jess and saying, "Tell me I never have to be out there."
Yes.
And then he responds and says, "You'll never have to be out there again." And I just thought that was so beautiful, such a beautiful moment. And I think that will play in with my theology point. So I'll come back to that later, but I wanted to say it now. So maybe one of the two of you can remind me. So I forget. Something just a quick highlights for me from this movie. I couldn't help but thinking last night as I was watching the cross-country road trip that the two of them are on at the beginning of the movie. Look at what happens when we don't have cell phones in our hands.
Oh, yeah.
And it struck me how deep their conversation was so quickly, because what else is there to do with someone when you're on the road for that long? And they're talking about things that they probably wouldn't share with many other people, but just by virtue of being stuck in this car alone together with no one else, and what else are we going to do? I just thought, especially as a teacher, and Rory, I don't know how much you can relate to this and how much you see it in your school over there, but when you take the technology out of the kids' hands, they're lost. They don't know what to do with themselves. And this art of conversation is completely foreign to them and lost on them. So I just, that was something that struck me right off the bat when I was rewatching the movie last night. Something else too, this is kind of a random thing, but it just struck me that after after the beginning scene of the movie where the Amanda character who introduces Harry and Sally to each other, the next time Harry and Sally run into each other, I guess about 5 years later, neither of them can even remember Amanda's name.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. There was something about that was just really sad to me. That I guess there's a lot of commentary to be had. And I think maybe that's what struck me is that for as much as this movie is about Harry and Sally, it's commenting also on so many other types of relationships in our lives. And here was this person that Sally was such great friends with for a moment, but then just 5 years later, she can't even get the girl's name right.
Wow.
And Harry was dating her and presumably probably slept with her, and he can't even remember her first name or her last name. Like, there was just something about that really struck me. Like, how much are we really investing in people if after only a 5-year absence we can't even recall their names? So it was just kind of a nice reminder of people matter. So invest in the people in your life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So
because these days
one of my
Facebook, wouldn't you?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so you could look her up and you could recall her name some other way, but neither of them had anything on that poor girl. So,
but I do like about that scene though. I do like how after she remembered, but Harry hadn't yet. Yeah. She puts on airs as it's like, oh, I can't believe you didn't remember. It's like I was like, that's top notch writing in and of itself, right there. That is great. Yeah.
And already getting into the dynamics of their relationship too with each other and men and women and everything. So I was hit very much by the 40 is a big dead end line. I'll be turning 40 in about 6 months, so that one hit hard.
Oof. Happy birthday. Life doesn't end, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm not 40 yet either, but I've been told that. Yeah. I've met people who are like 41, 42, like really old people. So.
Right. And I love the scene, when Harry and Sally are on the phone together. Sally says to Harry, "What will you do?" And he says, "I'll stay up and moan." That's one of my, I don't know why, but that's the scene that I've been thinking about like all week this week, getting ready to watch this movie again. And then finally, just my last observation is the famous line, when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. I'm sure we'll have some more commentary on that as we go on, but just, what great line, what great writing.
Yeah, and again, most of my praise of this film is along its dialogue. It is top notch, and again, I went with very fresh with this. It has I already said it, and I messed up what word it's called, but it has a realness to it that not a lot of people can pull off. Even the writer of A Few Good Men, which I can't believe I'm dropping his name.
Aaron Sorkin.
Sorkin, yeah. Incredible. But he doesn't write how humans talk. Mm-hmm. Like, he talks really quippy. He talks really quick. It's beautiful poetry, but it's not how humans actually talk. Mm-hmm. This had a certain realness to it that, again, it's being played up for movie and everything, but these felt a lot more like real individuals than just characters on a screen. And that's, I think, part of the reason why it's hard to separate in some ways Harry from Billy Crystal and Sally from Meg Ryan, is because they really just became those people. And I say, even earlier, when I said earlier, like, Harry and Sally both have flaws, and they're full on display. They're full on display for each other, but they're still likable people. Whereas a lot of other rom-coms that I've seen, and you're like, both of you are terrible human beings. Why would I be rooting for your relationship to do? And again, it's like, I think this probably get a little bit to the male female difference and stuff, but it's a lot of the cases when it comes down to is like, well, this is why rom-coms are called chick flicks a lot of time. It's because women can look by and they see the romance, whereas guys are like, well, I see the terrible human beings. Like, that's why The Notebook is one of the worst movies ever. Is because, like, both of you are just awful, awful human beings. Maybe you're nice now that you're in your 70s and have dementia, but when you were 25, you were a terrible person. And, like, I'm not rooting for either of you. And so I think that's probably going to be getting into a little bit of the central question of the film. Can men and women just be friends? We'll start with staging this and posing it, the question, the way that the film actually does it, and then we'll dive in a little deeper. And so Harry, they were at the diner. Harry had just come on to her. He had just made a pass at her, I'll say. And as the kids said back in the day, he just made a pass at her, and she's kind of, obviously just rejected him. And he says, no, we're just going to be friends. And Harry goes, after they get in the car, they start driving. He goes, you realize, of course, that we could never be friends. Oh, why not? What I'm saying is, and this is not a come on in any way, shape, or form, is that men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way. Sally says, that's not true. I have a number of men friends, and there is no sex involved. Harry, no, you don't. Sally, yes, I do. Harry, no, you don't. Yes, I do. Harry, you only think you do. Sally, you say I'm having sex with these men without my knowledge. Harry, no, what I'm saying is they all want to have sex with you. Sally, they do not. Harry, that do too. It's great. Again, the dialogue in this is fantastic. And it gets down to Sally, how do you know? Harry, because no man can be friends with a woman that he finds attractive. He always wants to have sex with her. Sally, so you're saying that a man can be friends with a woman he finds unattractive. Harry, no, you pretty much have to nail them too. Sally, what if they don't want to have sex with you? Harry, doesn't matter because the sex thing is already out there, so the friendship is ultimately doomed, and that is the end of the story. Sally, well, I guess we're not going to be friends then. Harry, I guess not. Sally, that's too bad. You were the only person that I knew in New York. Again, just go back and watch the film. It's fantastic dialogue. I love it. That's how Harry set the stage at their first meeting. It's a little bit of cynicism. This is right after she rejected him, so you could kind of ignore it to an extent. But I think it's the scene at the airport that also brings in the additional other element, is almost as an apologetic against this. And she reminds him of the conversation that, I thought men and women can't just be friends. And he says, yes, that's right. They can't be friends unless both of them are involved with other people. Then they can. This is an amendment to the earlier rule. If the two people are in relationships, the pressure of possible involvement is lifted. Yeah, and then he pauses. That doesn't work either, because what happens then is the person you're involved with can't understand why you need to be friends with the person you're just friends with. Like, it means something is missing from the relationship, and why do you have to go outside to get it? And then you say, no, it's not true. Nothing is missing from the relationship. The person you're involved with then accuses you of being secretly attracted to the person you're just friends with, which you probably are. I mean, come on. Who the hell are we kidding? Let's face it. Which brings us back to the earlier rule before the amendment, which is men and women can't just be friends. So where does that leave us? All right. So where does that leave us? With those two scenes there, and again, these are at the beginning of the movie, 5 years apart. Actually, both scenes are 5 years apart. Let's go ahead and ask our hosts here. We'll go ahead and get this started here. Can men and women just be friends? So, Bridget, why don't you go ahead and answer this age-old question that has been trumping people forever.
Forever, yeah.
Well, I'll caveat with that once we get to my spot about the forever part. But yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. I hate to equivocate here because I think this is the kind of question that deserves a straight up answer, but I do think it's situational to a certain extent. Well, and also, how are we defining the word friend? Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about friendship, and this is interesting. I actually just listened to Matt Walsh do a little bit of a discussion on his show about this. If we're talking about the word friend, as in someone that you have an attachment to, someone with whom you would have a frank discussion or share secrets, or details of your life or things that are important to you, I think if that's how we're defining friendship, whether male or female, then there is definitely going to be some kind of emotional attachment involved in that kind of relationship. Now, is it possible for for a man and a woman to have that kind of relationship without having a sexual attraction to each other? Sure, yeah, I think so. But is it advisable? And I think this is where it becomes situational. The more attached one or both of that man and woman are to someone else in a committed romantic relationship, then the less advisable it becomes for them to have friends, if that's how we're defining the word friend. I don't think that either partner in a romantic relationship should be seeking emotional attachment to someone of the opposite gender outside of that romantic relationship. I think that begins such a slippery slope, especially considering, so from the female perspective, women are much more emotional. We are much more relational. And if Harry is right at all in that men are mostly thinking about sex, I mean, it feels like it's only a matter of time before the woman is going to feel an emotional attachment to a man who wants to have a physical attachment. And how long can they really resist that until in some way, shape, or form there is a compromise? So I struggle with this one only because, again, I do think it's possible for there to be friendship, but is it advisable? And I think that's where I would probably tend to come down on the side of no, especially if either person is romantically involved with someone else.
Excellent. So it's a good salvo. I like it. So Rory, how are yourself? How are you answering this question?
Oh, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, and did you answer it differently before you started dating someone? That's the main question.
So I'm not going to go deep into that. I think this is not the forum for it, but obviously I'm struggling as a young man. How do you relate to women? Would be, how do we relate to women, and all sorts of stuff as a young man, being a young man, you go through and you're like, okay, surely there must be a way to be friends with them rather than just think about them in a romantic way. So that's been a question that perhaps I have wrestled with. And I thought, I did literally to pray, especially as a young person, a student at university, or just learn how to be friends with females. I think it's not very good with that at all, because it's not right to think everything is romantic or sexualized. This is not right. That's the gist of all I'll say about that. I think God did some work in that into my life. Fortunate to have good, decent female friends as well, and some even watched When Harry Met Sally with as well, who we could laugh about, and we still remain friends to this day. And the dynamic, I think I'll go deeper in the theology section a bit more about where this could possibly fit in, but I do think there is a possibility there, because I think we kind of if you think about the broader human family, we are going to have to relate to women, we are going to work alongside them, men and women, vice versa, women with men, and so this dynamic, we are made to be together in a sense, but I guess as I was saying, there are some boundaries that have to be put in place, for obvious reasons, that your notional attachment should be deeper in a romantic sense for your spouse as opposed to your female or male friend. Yeah, so that's where we could get there. But your friends with some people become more like sisters or brothers or even mothers or fathers to you. That as part of the church. And I think when we go deeper into the theology and saying what is God's vision for relationships and sex and things, it points, I feel, undoes some of the overreactions perhaps to the sexual revolution that I think When Harry Met Sally is in the middle of, and working out, this is not working, is it? It's broken. I think we could talk a little bit more about digital dating culture and apps and things and hookup culture, that people are still asking that question. It's broken. We have to go back to meeting in person. So the question hasn't changed, or just been asked in a different way. So how do we then go about it? I don't just want to meet up with people for romance. I also want community. I want friendship. And yeah, because we treat love or sex as the ultimate. Oh no, to avoid that pitfall, the ultimate sin. You sexualize every man or woman. Oh no, potentially close off some really fruitful male-female friendships, mother, daughters within the church. I think you could almost overcorrect, if you know what I mean. Because I think, if you get what I mean. So I know that's kind of dovetailing on what you're doing, Bridget, on kinda, but I'm like, do we want to baptize the ideas of Freud, for example, who says everything's sexualized? You know, you must be hanging out with your mother because you must fancy her in the British terms. I'm like, really?
Yeah. No, Freud. That I think that was you, Freud. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I think we baptize it, or christen it, depending on what denomination you are. Those sorts of errors with purity culture and things like that try to act Christian. Again, it's difficult to undo the culture's damage, as it were, and try to work it out biblically. So I guess we're working it out as well, aren't we, as church, and how to be family together as people of grace as well. So that's kind of, it's not easy. that's probably it. That's it.
Yeah. And so as I told the person today, when they're like, so what's your answer? I said, it depends on how you define friend. I have a lot of female friends. I have friends that I've had for going on 18 years from my banking career that I have great relationship with. We text when we get together as family. It's always great. But once I got married, our relationships fundamentally changed. Once they got married, their relationships fundamentally changed. I think that's one of the issues that we run into a lot of times is this idea of, can men and women just be friends? And we get into the idea that all friendships have to be equal. That it's almost I'll say it this way to be provocative, is it's almost like we've adopted a polyamorous view of relationships in general. Is that what do you mean you're jealous that I'm having lunch with my secretary? Don't you trust me, wife? Is like, don't you know that I love you? Is like, don't you know, like, why do you assume? I've heard poly people say this. Why do you assume you can get everything you need from one person? Now, and they're not talking, and again, they're not talking about sex. Yeah, obviously they're very focused in sex, but they're even talking about on a relational level. Why do you think that you're going to get everything you need from your wife? So you should have all of these other friendships. You should have all of these other things. They're emotionally polyamorous. And I think that's not at all what we see within the Bible. I think even within it's like marriage relationships and stuff, it's one of the things that Harry said to Sally, or he was talking about Sally, I should say, to Jess, is she says, I don't have to lie to her anymore. I don't have to lie about this stuff. I can talk to her on the phone. I can have all these things. He's describing the intimacy of marriage, but he's just viewing her just as a friend. He's using her as he should a wife, but he's not engaged in a covenantal relationship. He is like, you can be open, but once you have a marriage, though, is a lot of that just gets completely, totally cut off to everyone outside of your marriage. I know, the in the Bible it talks about the keeping the marriage bed undefiled, and I think obviously it's talking about the actual marriage bed, but it can be extrapolated beyond that. I mean, something that I've done in my own life is some of the female friends I have, they think Becky's the greatest person who's ever walked the face of the earth, because I have only ever shared the amazing things that Becky does. Even if literally we had an argument the night before and I came into work and they'll be like, oh, how's Becky? Becky's awesome. Becky was doing this. Becky was doing that. So that when they meet Becky is the greatest person that they've ever known. It's like, they're like, I can't believe the women know my flaws very well because I work with them. And so they think Becky's a a saint to be keeping keeping up with me. But if I was going to use the definition of friendship that a lot of people want to try to use, they now think that I'm actually basically lying to my friends by never sharing Becky's imperfections. And to me, I go, well, what point and purpose does that serve to share intimate details of my marriage with friends? And I'm not even talking about female friends. I mean, one of my best friends in life, he was one of my groomsmen. We've known each other for almost 20 years now. He and I are best friends. We talk probably almost every day, and then not in an entire month. It's one of those types of relationships where it doesn't matter how long you haven't talked, you just pick it back up. There's things I have never, ever shared with him about our relationship, but Becky and I's relationship. And so there's always this, the marriage bed, the marriage relationship is a sacred relationship that comes before all other relationships. So if we're going to define friendship the way how I would define friendship, yeah, you can absolutely have female friends. It's just, are you putting up those, and again, not to go the purity culture route, are you doing maybe a soft Pence rule or a Billy Graham rule type of thing, where it's like, hey, I'm not alone with with a woman in a room. I'm not saying go hard, but maybe go soft with that, that type of rule. And so to me, I come down on the side of, if you're going to define friend the way that the movie wanted to define friend, then no, you cannot be friends with women. But if you're going to define it the way how, in all honesty, majority of people actually are friends, then probably, as long as you're keeping up those guideposts and those guard posts, the good fences, that are protecting your marriage from any would-be wolves, and that includes you. Because sometimes you don't... I talked to my wife the other day about this, like, how many people actually strike up a friendship with their secretary or their coworker or the woman at the gym or the guy at the gym with the intention of having an affair 2 years down the road? Almost never. But it ends up happening because they opened up the gate, started sharing intimate details, started sharing that. The man became attracted to the woman. The woman became emotionally attracted to the guy. And then it ended up, as this movie shows, it ends up ruining the friendship because sex ends up getting in the way. So that's my soapbox on that side. But we want to keep talking about this, or we want to try to move a little bit into the theology side? I don't want to belabor the point. It sounds like all of us are mostly in agreement or mostly aligned. A lot of overlapping Venn diagrams.
I'm going to push back slightly because I think there's a bit more. Maybe I'm speaking as the unmarried man, because I think we talked about friendship. Well, what is it? And I think greater love than no man has this, that Jesus, that he lays life down for his friends. That Jesus said, John 13:13. So if that's the standard of friendship, then that's pretty awesome. And Jesus did that for the whole mankind, and especially for his church.
Yep.
So if that's the standard of friendship, then that is such a deep, sacrificial, loving way that for man and woman, as the church, to be united together. And Jesus was, I think he sets the standard for friendship. I think it was a single man with a lot of other relationships with people, obviously the 12, and then the 3 who are intimately with him, like John. And I think that's where we have to say, well, I think men and women can be friends in a certain context. And I want to give a more biblical picture to that. I think that's kind of flows there. That yes, I think the heavenly reality says, picture, yes, we can. The heavenly picture, that because in Hebrew, heaven is male, earth is female, and they're meant to be as one. Okay.
Yep.
So God is set in stone from the very beginning. I'm not just making this earth. I'm going to be intimately involved with it, and God's not afraid of that. that friendship with humanity, friendship with, the people as his bride, all these metaphors there. I mean, some of them have sexual connotations, yes, but metaphorically speaking, yeah. In a sense that perfect union is meant to be there with human beings, and that will be restored in wider community. Of course, it's broken. We talk about, well, yes, but there is a brokenness to this world. That means, wait a minute.
I would say it's the difference between, I've talked about this before in other contexts and stuff, and probably even mentioned it here in on the podcast a lot. It's the difference between the book of Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of Proverbs is a lot of times teaching to the ideal, the idea of things, and hey, son, don't be lazy, you'll be wealthy, you'll be this, you'll have that. And then you get to the book of Ecclesiastes, and he's like, "Yeah, all that kind of sucks. Yeah, it's all kind of fleeting. It's all kind of this." And I think that's the reality of it is, can men and women be friends? And we go, "Of course they can be friends. Are you an idiot?" Like it's literally like it's an of course. But then when you look at it and go, well, but kind of in what context? Because my wife doesn't really like the fact that I'm having coffee with a bunch of people that aren't her. And it doesn't matter that it's for work. It doesn't matter that it's for I'm bringing home the bacon for her, and it just requires, because of the nature of the 21st century American economy, that I have to do business meetings in public with females. It still doesn't strengthen my marriage. And so it's like it's the difference between that Proverbs living and the ecclesiastical living. And obviously, I agree with the Jesus is the friend who sticks closer than a brother. It is that he is the standard, but he is also sinless, and that's where the guardrails of he's fully man and fully God, and that's where the guardrails come with us of we emulate Christ, but we also understand that we are ourselves fallen or being restored, but we also have a human nature, which the human nature is to biologically reproduce until a certain age, obviously. Grace doesn't destroy our nature. It helps restore it and put it back into its proper use and function. And so if we're too intimate and too close, and I've had really good female friends that I've gotten too close to, that it shouldn't have ever gotten that close, because both of us had biological drivers towards each other. And we were good Christian friends. Nothing ever happened. But we crossed boundaries that shouldn't have crossed at cases, because both of us are, we're Christians. We're not going to do anything. Well, if you don't put up guardrails, you might. You might.
That's true. Yeah. And the guardrails, I think, in Harry Met Sally, the culture is becoming more individualistic.
Yep.
They're on their own, young, dumb, and they need a community. And so being New York, they become New York professionals. It's the 80s, it's cool. And their community becomes one that kind of is reinforcing their ideas of love, sex, and marriage.
Yep.
It's kind of a bit more, it's very much just getting what you can.
Right.
I mean,
her best friend is carrying on an active affair for 5 years. Yeah,
exactly. An active affair. It's Sex in the City before it was Sex in the City. You know, that kind of vibe. It's free, loving, apparently. And hey, I've got a file of facts that you've spoken up. Here's my file of facts of other boys. Next one. Next. Are you ready? Okay, I'm ready. Yeah, okay. And then and it's like, okay, or people get divorces and move on. And say the church is meant to be that greater community than the New York professional scene. Yeah. Greater, where it's far more familial, it's far less, consumeristic, and it's far more meant to be covenantal. Yeah, that's the whole. I think the guardrails, one thing, the covenant God has made with us, and we are made with each other. I think that's meant to be the kind of broader guardrail that is between man and God, and that is the greater community that we are lived by and by Jesus' blood, and flee to Him as well. We can, and it is that refuge from the sexual cult revolution. And I feel that Harry and Sally kind of imagine you want to talk to them as if they were in your church, don't you? Just counsel them and think, guys, there is something greater. And I think you should work things out. I think you make a cute couple, but I think you got to work your issues out. You definitely are too uptight. You definitely are, man. Turn down the heat. Have a cold shower.
Yeah.
Come on, Harry. you understand? You understand these conversations? They're real people. That's why it's brilliant. Because just imagine counselling these people because they're being counselled by their friends, and so as you're saying, we are going to live out the life we live according to the community we live in. So the church as a people of grace, from the refuge from the culture we live in, from the digital dating culture, which is a desert at times, if not just devastating for people even now, provides that. And it's great. I'm so thankful for Jesus, so thankful for his church, for transforming my life. And I can have great friendships with females and older people as mothers and fathers and everything. It's just brilliant because that's the guardrail I've been shown to love, and I've got some examples to live by as well. And yes, they got their nice friends who are on the phone. That's what they do. Who are you going to call when it goes wrong? That's the question. When your friendship kind of goes a bit wrong, you might have slept with someone, didn't quite mean to. How do you work it out? Who are you going to call? And I think it shows they've got a community around them. I thought, if only it was a church. How'd they work that out? Wouldn't that... They've mucked up, but as people of grace, how then can we restore them back in the relationship with Jesus? That's kind of where I want to see it from a more pastoral angle. I don't see it as, right, people are just going to muck up, right? People need a fresh start. People are also, and of course we don't want people to fall to temptation, but when they do, what are we going to do? That's kind of my kind of thoughts on there, and that's why I'm so glad to be part of a church that when I do muck up, I'm gonna be held accountable.
That church discipline, that nasty word that people don't like, the intention of church discipline when Paul said, turn them over, turn them outside of the church, so that, let Satan have them, so that they'll come back. And it's all, church discipline is always meant to be restorative of the individual. Christ came not just he did come from the collective church, but the collective church is made up out of individuals, and he came for individual human beings who have fallen short of the glory of God. All men have fallen short of the glory of God, and as the church, we need to remember that. So when we come across Harry's and Sally's, and the gospel's for Harry's and Sally's as much as it is for the couple who met, never had premarital sex, never had anything, and they just got married and have had a great, wonderful relationship for the last 45 years. It's for both people. It is for both the most wretched sinners, and it's also for the most polished, not saints yet. Excellent. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into and we'll do a quick theology segment, because we are getting a little long in the tooth here. So I know, Rory, you've been talking a lot, so I'm going to actually skip the notes and let Bridget talk for a little bit. Let's get some more of the female perspective on this podcast. Yeah.
Well, I'll keep my theological talking point pretty quick here, but I think it actually kind of connects a little bit to what you're saying, Rory, because what I was thinking about as you were talking is this idea that we all mess up, and I think it kind of connects to what I wanted to bring up in the idea that we all mess up, we're all sinners, and yet what was really striking me as I was watching this movie last night is the fact that one of the ways that we bear the image of our Creator is that we all want a love that will last. And we desire, I think one of the greatest desires of our hearts is that someone will fully know us and fully love us anyway, despite the flaws, despite the mistakes, all the times that we mess up. And so what was really hitting me last night is that all of these vignettes that we see in this movie with all of these married couples, they're all married. And they've been married for decades. And how they got there is different from couple to couple. But this movie, I think, is just so fascinating in that, and this is so different from the rest of the rom-com genre, or much of it, these marriages are held up, these relationships are held up as aspirational. So we see these vignettes, and I think the way that they're filmed and the way, you know, that the audience responds to those, at least it was for me, I'm watching this movie and I'm like, that's what I want, you know, like that. So, and I feel like that had to probably have been the case for many people who watched this movie when it came out and who still watch it. And so look at what this movie is doing. It's making marriage desirable. And I think that in and of itself is incredible. And even in this worldly secular movie, I think that's one of the ways that the creators of the film bear the image of their creator. And even in all of Harry's physical encounters with the women he dates, the movie also does some interesting things with the ideas of love versus lust. It's interesting for Harry that obviously he has an appetite for things, that he has no problem using a woman to meet that desire, and yet it's never really couched in terms of just simply lust. Him either. He's not, he goes out on dates with these women. He obviously has a very low view of what the ultimate goal of a relationship should be. But he doesn't also seem to just be getting into these relationships just for the sex either. It's this really weird coexistence of, the way that he views women. So, and then even with Marie, we had mentioned just a little while ago that she is having this affair with a married man, and she wants him to leave his wife for her, and she seems to think that she is pursuing a lasting love. But in this weird way, the man she's having this affair with refuses to leave his wife. And so somehow there's still this hierarchy, there's still this priority of the marital relationship over the woman he's having an affair with. It's just like in all of these different ways, this movie is playing with this idea of, we want a love that will last. And what does that look like? How do you go about getting it? So just really quickly, I was thinking about, why do we even want it to begin with? And so I was thinking about the verse in Ecclesiastes, Eric 3:11, about God setting eternity in the hearts of man. And then Psalm 139, the idea that God has known us, our Creator has known us from all of eternity, not just from the time we were conceived or the time we were born, but from all of eternity. He has purposed every single one of us to live. He has known our names. He knows the days of our lives. He knows the number of the hairs on our heads. To be so intimately known by our Creator, I think that's something that you can't help but then, even if you are not a Christian, you can't help but have that desire in your heart for, there's got to be a longing for that kind of intimacy. And unfortunately, the world so often misplaces it then and looks for it only in a romantic relationship as opposed to finding it in God. The Christian, obviously, our identity is in Christ, and we enjoy the gift of the romantic relationship, in addition to that. But we all want to be fully known and fully loved. And what a gift it is to find a love like that. So what that got me thinking about then was, if we all want a love that will last, then why do we see so many marriages fall apart? And even within the church, why is it that there's so much divorce or relationships that don't even make it to marriage, in that maybe the couple cohabitates and then decides that they don't want to actually be together, or they only cohabitate and never, have the marriage ceremony or whatever. So why does that happen? And I think, part of it is we see in Romans 1 that God gives people over to their sin. Sexual immorality is mentioned how many times in Scripture on all of the lists of things not to do, and it's such a pervasive sin in the world and in the church as well. So there's clearly, I think, something in our sinful nature that takes sex specifically, and not obviously sex is there, it's not like there's only sexual sin, but there is something about sexual sin that we crave it. We find so many ways to pervert God's design for a healthy sexual relationship. So it's a way that we rebel against God. We give into the desires of our flesh, and He turns us over to those. So I think, part of the problem is that God has designed one way for marriage to work, one way for sex to work, and the world doesn't want God's way. So God, has, to paraphrase the hymn, Christ the solid rock is where a healthy marriage stands, and all other ground is sinking sand. The world wants to defy God's design, but then wonders why there's so much pain and heartache in their relationships. But part of the problem, too, is that we don't want love the way that God defines it. Love is action. Love is sacrifice. Love is a choice you have to make every single day. No feeling is going to see you through the hard times, because the feelings will come and go. So everyone wants that lasting love, but how many people are actually willing to work for it? You want it to be effortless on your part. You want your significant other or your spouse to give everything to you, but how much are you giving back? And it's work. And I think we want to rely on the fuzzy feelings to always be there to carry us through. But what happens when we get past that? So one thing I just wanted to say is, if there's anybody listening to this right now who is feeling unloved or unlovable for any reason, get right with God first, because that kind of lasting, eternal love can only come through a right relationship with your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So get that relationship right first, because no earthly relationship can take that place, nor can it be rightly ordered if it isn't founded on Christ. There is an ache in your soul that no earthly relationship can possibly heal, and God's love is the only one that can truly be everlasting and eternal. No earthly substitute is ever going to accomplish that. So, and the other thing too, I think, is we need to acknowledge before God that He doesn't owe us a spouse. That is not something that we have a right to. He may not bring you one. He may not. And that is really, really hard if you're in a season of singleness and you don't know the answer to that question, especially if you have that desire in your heart to have a spouse and you just don't know if it's going to happen. It's hard. If He has blessed you in marriage and has given you a godly spouse, thank Him every single day for that blessing. But no matter what, either way, choose joy, especially in the hard times. Choose joy, because there is joy in singleness. There are things you can do in your singleness that you can't do if you're married. There are ways that you can serve the Lord that are not available to you in a marital relationship, and vice versa. So no matter what it is, just continue to give endlessly of yourself, whether it's for your spouse's good or for the good of the people around you. And I think the way that I would close this out is, if it's the desire of our hearts to be fully known and fully loved, and to have an eternal, everlasting love, that is something that we have to be, first of all, willing to submit to God about, because He's the only source of an eternal lasting love. And second of all, we have to be willing to put in the work. This is not something that comes for free. And if you're not willing to give of yourself, you can't expect someone else to give that way to you. So look for the ways to honor God by serving whomever He has put in your life, whether you are married and that's your family, or whether you are single and that is the people He has in your sphere of influence, because either way, you're making a kingdom difference. And that is how you honor and glorify God in this life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bridget. That was
so good.
fantastic. Fantastic. No notes. No notes, right? Yeah.
Wow.
But
Speaking right from the heart there.
Yeah, it's an incredible the why relationships a lot of times fall apart is on one end complacency, and the other one and discontentment.
Yeah.
And both of those are remedied by Christ and how we are to engage in relationships. Like, relationships are meant to be relational, and if there's not a give and take, there's not communication, then you're not actually in a relationship. And He's modeled that for us. The Trinity is a perfect relationship. And if that's the model that God has done, the Father sends the Son, and the Son sends the Spirit in this perfect relational way, And yeah, some people look in that and see hierarchy, but no, I see more of relationship. And it's this mutual relationship where every person that comes to Christ, the Spirit gets acknowledgement and recognition. He's the one that regenerates hearts. Christ gets the immediate glory, and then he passes it all back on to the Father. And it's this perfect relationship that we are meant to be modeling as the church and as married people. And then if you're single, it's within that context of all of the people you have that you have contact with is how are you showing that love? And as you say, love is not a feeling. It is, and I said this in a previous podcast, it's a series of actions. It's not one grand gesture.
Right.
It's day in, day out, doing, I hate this phrase, but doing the work. And it's not even a drudgery work unless you make it a drudgery work. The work is, hey, don't yell at your wife. Hey, bring her flowers. Hey, take her out to dinner when she tells you, this is a conversation we literally had 5 minutes before we started recording. Hey, we haven't actually been out on a date, just the two of us, in the last 4 months. And it's like, no, I hadn't realized that. So guess what we're doing? It's these series of actions that takes place, and it's not even hard work if you love the person. And so I say, and if you don't love the person, do the work, and you're probably going to end up loving them.
Yeah.
Exactly. And from a point of view of someone who's single and dating right now.
Yeah, I know. We had this conversation. We hit record too. I remember being before married. I was like, people were like, "Are you single?" I'm like, "Well." Depends on how you're defining single.
I have a girlfriend. So, saying that, I think Harry Met Sally, we can speak into the culture, of a restless culture, sick of dating apps. I think Augustine, 2,000 years ago, himself also loved women as well, as much, and had a mistress for many years and had a child with her, and out wedlock, and says, our hearts are restless until we find our rest in you. And he would know it more than anyone else. He would know the pain of sexual frustration, just like a Harry. Yeah, he would probably be a Harry character, quite philosophical, but still quite deep, and probably had the immature stage. And to our dating app culture, where we swipe right or left, I say swipe up. God says swipe up to me, not to left or right, because you're not going to get your satisfaction to the left or to your right by rejection, by being rejected, all that, or getting the Filofax as they do in the film. You're going to get your satisfaction in God ultimately, aren't you? And that's the love that we're really seeking for, and we do find our affections, and the expulsive power of that superior affection in Christ will just fulfill everything. He's that fountain. He's that fortress. He's the fountain against the sexual revolution. He's the fortress against the sexual revolution. He is our fountain of satisfaction in life. I've been reading Proverbs 14. He's both the fortress and the fountain, and that's what we both need. And just swipe up, guys, and that's all.
And there it is, Bridget and Rory bringing the gospel thunder down on all of us. It was great. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of receive, reject, and redeem. And we're going to do this a little bit rapid-fiery, a little bit more. So I'm just going to go with all of my rejects right off the bat. Is reject 1, reject premarital sex. Reject cheating on the person you were dating. And so, when Harry and Sally were intimate for the first time, they were both dating other people. But the film never addresses it, has no sympathy for them. So reject that. It also has no real sympathy for the guy that Carrie Fisher is having an affair with. They're more concerned the fact that she won't, that he's not going to leave his wife. But there's no issue with the cheating. So reject that outright. And then 1 is reject the idea of comparing where you are in your journey or in the moving on journey from where your ex is. And so definitely reject those. So Bridget, how about you got any rejects?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Obviously, Harry's entire view of sex, I think, needs to be rejected. And the one just really, I guess, I don't know if it's, just being a woman or the stage of life that I'm in right now. It's been a while since I've watched this movie, so I'm a little bit older. So I don't know what it was, but his reduction of sex to how long do I have to hold her afterward? That's me. I'm watching this movie last night. I'm like, what a jerk, for him to reduce sex to I get what I want out of it, but then, oh my goodness, the woman might expect that I give her some emotional fulfillment too. Okay, buddy, you don't get to have it both ways, but that's something that we need to learn too, is that sex means different things to the two different sexes. So, yeah. Women go into it wanting that emotional fulfillment too, but apparently the guy is not always willing to give that. So that's why, ladies, don't guard your carnal treasure. Marriage also too, the line that struck me, last night is who is it that says our friends got married and they never have sex anymore? And
it was Sally.
Yeah, right. Thank you. And I am not married, but I do believe that marriage should be the beginning of a healthy sexual relationship, not the end of it. So, for those of you who are married out there, make of that what you will. But, sex should certainly be a part of your marriage.
Excellent. So moving on to the receive side of the equation is a receive that is actually really good about this is develop a relationship before dating and marriage. And again, so this is my whole thing about hey, can men and women be friends is, well, it depends on what context we're talking about. If you're not married, if you're not dating, be friends with every single woman you meet. Like it's a great thing. That's what I did before I met my wife. It's awesome. It's the best way how to develop an actual relationship that could actually blossom into marriage. Simultaneously, though, I always say this is like, but don't let the friendship, quote unquote, get in the way of a good relationship. I've known several friends that would have been really, really good together, but they didn't want to ruin the relationship because these ideas of, oh, we have such a great thing going for us right now. Well, got news for all those people that are doing that calculus. As soon as one of you meets up with someone else, the relationship that you have, the friendship you have, is going to be ruined anyways. Because once you throw a third and then a fourth person on top of your existing relationship, it fundamentally changes it. My wife and I's relationship is fundamentally changed the moment that we had a child. Mm-hmm. So don't be so enamored of your current friendship that you give up having a good like marriage or even dating relationship with the person. And I'm not even talking about like I believe you should date to get married, but I also believe you should date. And so if you find like in the proper way, try people out. In a proper God honoring, no sexual way. Try people out is to see if they'd be good, marriage companions, but develop good friendships with people. So that to me is receive.
Definitely. I want to dovetail on that, Eric, and say that also in marriage, you can't, your spouse isn't going to be able to fulfill you 100%. Obviously, point to God. That's a bit of a redeem there. But outside friendships with other couples or other people as well, like mothers, fathers, even daughters, those healthy relationships can exist within a context of, because your spouse is never going to be enough. For, and I'm not saying you blab every detail to everyone around, but I'm saying that to keep you accountable, to keep you sane, keep you sane and safe. And that's not a bad thing, because your couple, you don't exist as an island of yourself. You exist in a community, in a place, in a world. Because I feel that this is sort of a receive and a redeem, where couples can be just go off on their own. They just do their own thing trouble comes, and who are you going to pick up the phone to? Like I said to, they pick up the guys they pick up the phone to when they've actually mucked up or they feel there's trouble in the relationship, and that's not a bad thing. I say so. It's a bit of receive and a bit of redeem on that one. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'll jump into a redeem if that's okay, really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking about this, Eric, actually, when you just said that your wife had mentioned to you that you hadn't been out on a date together for several months. I'm so glad she communicated that to you, because I think sometimes women tend to think that men can read our minds and know exactly what we want, and we find out that maybe that is not actually the case. So like, good for your wife that she was willing to come to you and say that to you. And so one of the redeems that I picked up on in this movie is the idea of communication in a relationship. So there's this scene in this movie where Sally tells Harry that she has a date, and he responds by telling her that he's happy for her, and all of a sudden her face falls. And you realize she doesn't want him to be happy for her. I think she wants him to be jealous. She wants him to ask her out. She wants to go out with him. But it takes a long time for that part of their relationship to fall into place, where they are that open and that honest with each other. So communication is really, really hard, but it also has to be present for a relationship to be healthy. So just talk to each other, and don't keep it inside, or else it's going to fester and turn into a big blow up later. So communication is key. Yep.
So a quick redeem, and it's a little bit longer quote, but backing off what you had said about the never having sex, I called this the lie versus the reality. So Sally said, when Joe and I started seeing each other, we wanted exactly the same thing. We wanted to live together. We didn't want to get married, because every time we knew, because every couple we knew that got married, it ruined their relationship. They practically never had sex again. It's true. It's one of the secrets no one tells you. I would sit around with my girlfriends who have kids, and then she pauses. I love this part. I was like, oh, this is where it is. And actually, my one girlfriend who has kids, Alice, so it was like, I guess she's like, all of my friends that have kids, she was like, well, no, I actually only have one friend who has kids. And she would complain about how she and Gary never did it anymore. She didn't even complain about it, now that I think about it. She just said it matter-of-factly. She said they were up all night, and they were both exhausted all the time. The kids took every sexual impulse they had out of them. And Joe and I used to talk about this, and how we were so lucky, that wonderful relationship. We get sex on the kitchen floor, not worry about the kids walking in. We could fly off the room in a moment's notice. And then one day, I was taking Alice's little girl to the afternoon, because I promised to take her to the circus. And we were in the cab playing I Spy a mailbox, I Spy a lamppost. She looked out the window and saw this man and this woman, this little kids, and the man and little kids on his shoulder. And she said, I spy a family. And I started to cry. She said, I know, I just started to cry. And I went home and I said, thing is, Joe, we never fly off the roam on a moment's notice. And Harry asks, on the kitchen floor? She says, not once. It's very cold, hard Mexican ceramic tile. And that's why I say the reality versus the lie. The lie is, hey, you can be single. You don't have to get married. You don't have to do it. You can have all the fruits. You can fly off to Rome. You don't have to worry about kids. You don't have to worry about all this. But the reality was, none of them, like, they weren't doing that. I had this conversation with I'm people that know me. I'm a banker. I do financials. I do all this type of stuff. And a friend of mine was talking about, I'm going to refinance my mortgage, go from, I only have 15 years left, but I'm going to put it out to 30. I'm going to get all this cash. It's going to increase my cash flow. I'm going to be able to do all this investments and all this stuff. And I said, but are you? He was like, but are you going to do that? And he was like, he kind of looked and went, touche. Like, he knew. He just needed someone to call him out on his BS. Yeah. And I think this kid in this scene essentially called her out on the BS of the lie of, no, you don't need kids to have a fulfilling life. And don't hear what I'm not saying, people. Having kids, getting married is an incredible achievement. If God doesn't give that to you, doesn't mean you're not a human being. Doesn't mean you're a lesser of. But God also put these things, these good high callings into humanity. It's our own sin that has caused us, in a lot of cases, not to accomplish these things. So hear what I am saying, hear what I'm not saying. But the other lie, and I'll address this very briefly, is they've done study after study after study after study. Except for the top 10% of men, married couples have exponentially more sex than everyone else. And it's only, again, the tippy top 10% of men who are the highest achievers that temporarily have more sex than married couples. So everything's a lie all the way down from it. So that's a redeem on that aspect of go for the family, go for it. I mean, maybe that was a reject or receive. I don't know. Maybe it was redeem or not. But and then last redeem, and I'll be really quick with this, is Mary was talking about. I was like, oh, you got to get back out there. You got to get back out there before someone gets your husband. it's like there's someone else walking around with with your husband. And the reject part of that idea is this idea of the one. There is not the one out there for people. Some people have no one. Some people have. Some people could make a great marriage relationship with anyone. I'm just using that hyperbole. There is not the one. That the idea of the one comes from pagan and Greek philosophy, not from anything that's actually found within Scripture. So reject that. It's bogus. It feels romantic, I should say, but it actually is a poison pill, and it fuels discontentment because you're always in the back of your mind thinking, is this person the one? Is this person the one? And it makes you criticize parts of the relationship. It makes you unduly delay marriage. And a lot of times puts you in entangling vows of self-imposed vows of single life. And again, I'm taking that verbiage from those that know from the Westminster Larger Catechism, which should be quoted a lot more, talking about the sins forbidden in the seventh commandment.
Oh, you Presbyterian.
Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly. Should be quoted a lot more, but talking about the undoing delay of marriage that a lot of us go. So that's a redeem. Is I'm not saying run off and get married to whoever you want, but also do have a little bit of urgency, but reject the idea of the one coming down. So, Rory and Bridget, you guys got any more receives or redeems?
No, I think that'll do it for me.
That'll do
All right,
and
excellent. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. Thanks for having this great conversation. Hopefully, I didn't make too many people angry or disagree with me. Rory's girlfriend, you can reach out to me anytime. And talk to me about what I got wrong on this and Little Women, apparently. Go ahead. And, anyone. We honestly, in all honesty, we love feedback from all of our listeners. So. Put in the comments, Discord, Facebook, anywhere. We'd love to continue on the conversation with that. And so until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly worldview. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
Thanks for watching this episode of Popcorn Theology. For more content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to help broaden the conversation. Check out our archive of past episodes at popcorntheology.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, and consider becoming a patron saint by supporting us on Patreon, which lets you interact, influence, and enjoy exclusive bonus content.